Hi, and welcome to my very first live broadcast on social media platforms. And what I want to share with you over the next 20 minutes is a model and a process that can be applied into any business. When it is, it will produce huge increases in both sales and profits. And I was encouraged to do a live by the brilliant Helen Walker. Now, if you don't know Helen, I highly recommend you look her up and watch some of her very entertaining and awesome videos. I'm pretty sure they're going to be Oscar nominated next year. Now, I want to thank Helen because she's making me start right outside my comfort zone here. And I'm doing that by diving in at the deep end and going live on 3 platforms simultaneously: LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So that means I've got to keep an eye on the comments, which are on the screen in front of me. Plus, I've got a presentation, a PowerPoint I'll be sharing on a monitor over there. I'm going to be looking at you through a camera that's there. I've got a clicker to control the PowerPoint. I've got a keyboard in front of me. I've got to remember what I need to say. And there's a few moving parts to this thing, isn't there? And as you can see, I'm a bloke, which means I'm not wired for multitasking. And to be honest with you, I get confused when someone hands me the TV hand control. So I'd ask you to bear with me if I take time to get to your comments. And what I'll probably do is I'll deal with the comments at the end of the presentation. Okay, so now I'm going to go all Max Bygraves on you, and I want to tell you a story. A story about me. I first went into business back in 1982, and my first few businesses were reasonably successful in that sales and profit grew, and that was despite me. And I say despite me because, in truth, I didn't really know what I was doing. My strategy for business success was working long, hard hours, which can work, but it does take its toll, doesn't it? And then there are better ways to do it. Now, things started to change for me after I bumped into a guy one night in a bar and got chatting to him. And that guy was Norman Jepson. And he was the managing director of Boland Inns. And Boland Inns consisted of 200 businesses at the time. So it's fair to say that Norman knew a thing or two about business. And quite literally, on the back of a beer mat, he drew out for me and introduced me to a model for growing businesses. Now, if I'm honest, I'd consumed a few drinks that night. I'm a sociable chap. And what Norman taught me didn't fully land. It sort of went through. But when I got back to my business, I pulled the beer mat out, I studied it, and then I started applying it. And as a result of that, my business started to ramp up really quickly. And over the last 42 years, I've tweaked and I've adjusted that model into what I now call my Why for Profit model. And that's what I want to share with you on this live stream. I want to share it because it will enable you to initiate significant sales and profit growth within your business. Right, so what I need to do now is bring up the presentation and I need to get rid of that banner as well. Let me see if I can remember how to do that. That's okay. Now here comes the presentation. Can somebody just let me know in the chat that they can see that slide? Good, thank you. Okay. So what I'm going to share with you is the Why for Profit model and process that I help my clients implement into their businesses. And it helps them achieve a minimum of double-digit growth year in, year out. So this stuff works, but only if you apply it. Now, this is a clever guy, Einstein. And whenever a clever guy or a clever girl says something profound like Einstein's saying here, I think we'd all do well to sit up and take notice. And what he's talking about here, the compound effect, is effectively earning interest on interest. And when you take this particular principle and you apply it into your business, you can get some really quick and often huge wins. So what I want to do is I want to show you how this works for me, how it works for my clients, and now how it can work for you too. Now, there's lots of things as business owners, there's lots of things that we would like to have more control over. 3 of those things are customers. We like how many customers you have in our business. We all like more customers. And I'm guessing we want more customers so we can grow our sales. I'm imagining that most people who are on this broadcast would like more customers. Even those that are watching on the replay would probably want more customers. They would want more sales. Now, the challenge I find with those 2 numbers or those 2 metrics is they can be very ego-led. Because you can have a huge amount of customers, you can have thousands and thousands of customers, and you can be making more than enough sales. You could be turning over millions of pounds in sales. But it's irrelevant. And it doesn't mean doodly if there's not enough profit dropping to the bottom line. So a great question to ask yourself is, do you want to get big or do you want to get wealthy? because they don't necessarily go hand in hand. Now, whilst we're on the subject of profit, something I do urge you to do, I urge all my clients to do, and that is find out what your industry average net margin is. Because back in the day, when I got my hands on my first restaurant, it was only making 2% on the bottom line. And after two or 3 months of really hard graft, I got that up to around about 6%. Let me just step back from that. I didn't do it on my own. Me and the team did that. But because we got it up to 6%, I thought I was a rock star. A triple the profit. Woo, rock star. But then I discovered that the industry average for the restaurant industry was around about 12%. And that it was 12% because the businesses like mine that were dragging the figure down. So that meant there had to be businesses that were north of this figure. So what I did was I went looking a little bit deeper, and I found that McDonald's had a net profit margin of around 22.5%. Now, we weren't McDonald's. We had a totally different type of model. We had a totally different type of operation. We had a totally different type of offering. We had a totally different type of service. But regardless of that, I set us a goal of hitting 20% net margin. We didn't hit the goal, but here's the thing. It's not what a goal is, it's what a goal does. It's not what a goal is, it's what a goal does. So we didn't hit 20%, but we did it 18.5%. So from 2%, when I got my hands on the business, to 18.5%, that's a huge increase in profit. That's a game-changing increase in profit. And that's the reason I suggest that you find yours. Because if you're falling short of your industry standard, it presents you with one huge opportunity. Because when you can close that gap, it will create a profound change within your business. What I'm about to show you here will not only help you close the gap, it'll enable you to become one of those businesses that are above industry standard. And that's game-changing. That can be life-changing. So we've got customers, we've got sales, we've got profit. And those are three things that we'd all like more direct control over. Challenge is we can't control those numbers. What we've got an element of control over, though, is the activities that drive those numbers. So if we want to get more customers, first thing we need to do, we need to generate some new leads or inquiries through our marketing. Right? I'm going to presume you've all got a marketing plan. Now, some of those leads will buy, some of them won't. That will determine your conversion rate. The better your sales process, the better your conversion rate is going to be. I've got a message up on the screen there. I'm just going to get rid of that. 1 second. Now, if you take your sales and you divide them by your number of transactions, that will give you an average spend. I'll talk a little bit more about average spend in a second. So that is one arm of customer generation. The other arm is repeat customers. People who've already bought from you, your database. Now, you would expect your conversion rate to these people to be different than it is to new customers because they've already dealt with you. They already know, like, and trust you. And the average spend is likely to be different as well. So let's just say, for instance, if you had a garden landscaping company, the initial purchase could be a landscape garden, and that could be a fair chunk of money, couldn't it? Right? But subsequent purchases could be things like plants or maintenance of the garden or lawn maintenance or furniture. And those all come at a lower ticket price. And that can work in reverse as well. So let's just say, for instance, you could take your car to someone who's got a car to get serviced. Next time you go and visit that business, you might be buying a car from them. So it can work in reverse. Now, you multiply those 6 things out there, and it gives you your sales. A percentage of every sale will go towards cost of sale, things like wages or materials or transport. For those of you who are saying, I haven't got a cost of sale, well, you do. We all got a cost of sale. That cost of sale could be time, it could be people, it could be both those things. That percentage that's left over is what's known as a gross margin. Translate that back into cash, and that becomes our gross profit, which goes towards paying our overheads or our fixed costs, and then what's left over is our profit. Before I press on with this, can you just let me know in the chat, can everybody see that model within their business? Because if you can't, I may need to explain it a little bit more. Okay, I can see comments in the chat but not pertaining to this model, so I'm going to press on. Now, if we were working together, those 8 areas where we'd be putting some focus, I want to help you get more control over those 8 areas. And one of my main focus as a coach when I'm working with my clients is helping them get control of their controllables. So what I want to do now is take this stage further and let's put some numbers into it and see how it works. What I would encourage you to do is to follow along on a calculator if you've got one, so that you can see how it works, but also you can see there's no smoke and mirrors here. This thing just works. So let's say over the course of a year, this business generates 1,000 leads from its marketing efforts. 40% of those leads convert into paying customers. On average, their first spend is £600. The business has got a database of 500 people. 55% of those people return and buy again, and the average of that spend is £1,000. Multiplying all that out gives us sales of £515,000. Now, this is a service business, so its gross margin is slightly higher at 55%, and that gives them a gross profit of £283,250. They've got overheads of £250,000, if my clicker works, and that leaves them with a profit or a bottom line profit of £33,250. Now, I don't know about you, but to me, that's not a lot of reward for a heck of a lot of effort. Now, before I carry on, just a couple of things here. Don't get hung up on the numbers, right? Your numbers will be different. They can be hugely different from these numbers that you can see on the screen. The model works whatever the numbers are. The effects are going to be the same. Another thing is the average sale. A lot of people seem to have a hang about this one, or they have a bit of a problem with it because they may have a customer spending £10, they might have another customer spending £1,000, they could have a customer spending £10,000. But it doesn't matter. Clump them together. What's the average? Because when you apply a strategy to the averages rise. When a tide rises, all boats rise, doesn't it? Right, so now here's another clever guy. This is Warren Buffett, and he says you don't need to do extraordinary things in business to get extraordinary results. So thinking about this principle and apply it to the Einstein principle, what if we were to do something that's not so extraordinary to each of those 8 areas in blue in that Y for profit model, and we were to go to work on them, and we were to implement 1 to 3 strategies over the course of a year, strategies that were implemented with the goal of increasing each of those numbers by just 8%. Ask yourself, would it be out of the realms of possibility within your business that if over the next 12 months for you to raise those numbers by just 8%? Of course it wouldn't. So let me show you how to really ramp up the sales and the profit within your business by looking at what happens to the outcomes, the red boxes, the things that you can't control, when we improve the controllables, the blue boxes, by as little as 8%. So an 8% increase in leads means we've now got 1,080 leads. That's just 7 extra leads a month in it. And there are over 60 strategies that you can use, you can put into that box to affect that number. And as I said before, you only need 1, 2, or 3 of these. If you get better at sales, your conversion rate will step up to 43.2%. That's not a huge rise. As you'll see, it's going to make a huge difference. Average sale becomes £648. And because you're working on improving the business and the way it operates, more customers are going to return. That number goes up to 540. Conversion rate, because you're still better at sales with them as well, 59.4. Average sale is £1,080. Because we're always going to be working on creating more effective and more efficient systems, that would reflect in the gross margin, which is now 59.4%. And in this instance, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you an increase in overheads or fixed costs, but that's not necessarily the case. A lot of people think that as sales rise, costs rise with them. That's one way of doing it. It's also possible for sales to rise and costs not to rise at the same rate. So you widen the gap between sales and costs. When you're doing that, what happens then? What effect does that have on your profit? Makes it bigger, doesn't it? With my clients, we use a tool called the Profit Maximizer Matrix, which basically you ask 2 vital questions against every expense that you've got in your business. And by the end of that exercise, I've not had a client yet that can't reduce their costs. But for this instance, because I've gone a little bit off the track there, but for this instance, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show an increase to make it a bit more real for some people to £270,000. That's an 8% increase. So what we've done now is we've worked on the things that are in your control. We've controlled the controllables. But let's have a look now how that affects the final result. Sales are now £648,752. That's a 26% increase. Gross profit is now £385,358. That's a 36% increase. And the bottom line profit is now £115,358. That's a 246% increase. This is how coaching pays for itself. This is how you consider coaching should be free, shouldn't it? But this thing gets even better. It does get better. Just imagine if we were working together and we were to say, all right, let's do this for 3 years. So for 3 years, we put together a plan to increase those numbers by 8%. Each of those numbers were 8%. So we did it this year, we did it next year, we did it the year after. And we're just going to stick with an 8% increase. What do you think the outcome would be to the sales and the profit after 3 years? If you want to guess that, I'll stick it in the chat if you want. But while you're sticking that in the chat, I'm going to press on with it. Right, so you would now have, after 3 years, £1,029,080 in sales. That's a 99% increase. The gross profit would now be £712,967. That's a 151% increase. And the bottom line profit would be £398,039. That's a whopping 1,097% increase. The key thing here is to know which strategies to plug into those blue boxes. And all you need is 1 to 3 strategies in each box, but just look at the difference it can make to your business. So a great question to ask yourself is which one of those 8 areas offers you or holds for you the biggest area of opportunity? Because some areas are going to have bigger opportunities than others. You'll be able to get much bigger wins and much bigger increases in some of those areas. Another question to ask yourself is I often get asked actually is, how do I attack these? Where do I start with this? For me, you'll start with margins. And here's why you want to work on margins first. If I was to ask you, do you know the actual margins that your products and services produce, would you be able to say yes to that? And what I'm talking about is not, when I say actual margins, not predicted margins. Because what happens is what we predict is going to be at the margin is not what turns up at the end. So do you do a post-mortem on all your jobs that you do to actually look what you actually achieved? Because you'd be surprised how often we never achieve the margin we predicted. And it really shows up a lot in businesses that actually people are selling products and services that are actually losing them money. And what if you've got systems and processes in your business that slow things down? They're not fit for purpose, which means you're never going to be able to create the profit that you want to. And think about what would happen if you went to market with those systems, with those products and services that weren't making you money, and you were to market them, and the marketing worked. It really worked. What would be happening to your business? Someone just put the foot numbers in for the previous thing that I asked. Well, essentially, your business is going backwards and you're rapidly becoming less profitable. So what we need to do is we need to have some form of a job objective evaluation in around the numbers so we understand all the margins first before we start pulling those growth levers. Does that make sense? Next, we'd look at conversion rate, because there's a lot of low-hanging fruit in that box. And so let's just say, for instance, you've got a conversion rate of 10%. 1 in 10 people buy. And we were to put 2 to 3 strategies in place to help that conversion rate increase. So let me put in there, get better skilled at selling, put in place a fully documented sales process, understand what the objections are, why people aren't buying from us, and then put in place a process to overcome those objections. Now, if you're not really good at those three things, could you take your conversion rate from 10%, 1 in 10 buying, to 2 in 10 buying? And if you did that, what have you just done to your business? You just doubled it. Magic, eh? Next thing would be the average spend. What's the portion of fries within your business? Then we'd look at repeat customers. If customers aren't coming back, right, then that would suggest there's not a process for getting them back. So what would happen if we created a process to get people back? And then finally, we'd look at new leads. Why is new leads last? Well, if you think about it, you've got to have your internal systems working first, because generating leads, it costs you money, doesn't it? And why would you waste your money generating leads if your internal systems aren't up to scratch? So that's the why for profit model. Let me just click us back here. I'm going to be clever now. I'm going to try and put that banner back. I'm showing off now, aren't I? Okay, so there you have it. That's firstly, that's how you generate profit in your business, and secondly, that's how you can massively grow the profit in your business through using the why for profit model. Now, if you want any help with this, or you want to learn more or see the effect this could have on your own numbers, just give me a call or DM me, or you can go to my LinkedIn featured section and book yourself a free 45-minute Find My Cash session. And in that session, I guarantee that together we're going to find at least £25,000 in extra cash in your business, and also identify the strategies you need to use to release it, because the cash is already there, it's just hiding in plain sight. My average on those calls, by the way, is running at a tad over £80,000, and I only do 2 calls per week, so book yours now. So righty, that's my first live. That's the why for profit model, and it works. It really, really does work. So give it a go. Take this thing from practice to mastery, because you will thank me later. Now, I've just noticed the time, so I'm going to end things there. I would say thank you for watching. I'll do another live next week. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to go out there and you make it